Now, who made Abel Sanchez the new face of boxing coaches or boxing trainers, whatever you feel comfortable calling them? This your boy CJ Goodfella back with the boxing clinic. He just be saying some crazy shit. And remember all that shit that Freddie Roach used to say, making predictions, and he was the hot shot, boxing coach for many, many years. Even after his string of luck pretty much ran out with some of his fighters, he still was getting a lot of Boxing Trainer of the Year awards. And, now he's not as prevalent. And it seems like Abel Sanchez want to pick that ball up and keep it moving. But he doesn't have the clout of Freddie Roach. Nowhere near. Other than Golovkin, his next best fighter was, Terry Norris, who was an amazing, phenomenal fighter. Take nothing away from Terry Norris. But he's talking as if, he has a Manny Pacquiao. And he can talk on an array of subjects. And he can deem who's a formidable foe for Triple G, and who's good in this division, and as people give people give a fuck about his opinion, like he Freddie Roach. I still value Freddie Roach's opinion when his fighter is not in the fight. Freddie Roach is usually a very honest guy when it doesn't come to his particular fighter, especially Manny Pacquiao. But Abel Sanchez is not the shoe not fitting him in that role as what Freddie Roach was. Freddie Roach got a lot of predictions right, or close to being right, with Pacquiao and some other fighters that he did have. He showed that he was for real. And rebuilding some of these fighters. Whether it was Victor Postal, whether it was Pacquiao. He did it with Miguel Cotto. He had Peter Quillen. He had Vanes Monterrosian at a period of time. Even when he was doing with Frankie Gomez recently, if he could stay in the gym. And Abel Sanchez don't have that reputation. And he thinks that his word is Bible in the sport of boxing. And he done contradicted himself so many times without even having a concrete fighter to have that star-esque type of feel that Freddie Roach had as a trainer. Like Freddie Roach was a transcendent boxing coach. Abel Sanchez, he trying too hard. That's basically what I'm saying. He trying to fill that void as the voice of boxing coaches, and he ain't thorough in that way, man. Saying that Jamal Charlo at the one fight he ain't ready for Triple G, he hasn't earned his right. Triple G versus Charlo is bad for boxing. Then saying if Lomachenko would pick Mikey Garcia apart. He also said Kell Brook would beat Errol Spence. It was too early for Errol Spence. So he ain't even got a guy that that's 100% thorough. He don't even have a boxing star in Gennady Golovkin, in my opinion. A guy that's 100% thorough. And this fight with Canelo Alvarez will make him 100% thorough. He said they'd knock out Danny Jacobs in 8. It didn't happen. And he's deeming who's acceptable to fight Triple G. But Triple G was the same guy fighting Rosado, Macklin, Curtis Stevens, Daniel Gill. He's the same guy that refused the Andre Ward fight. When when he first came over, after he fought Rosado, I want to say, they asked him, in the HBO Fighter, was he ready for Andre Ward? They said, no, we're not ready for Andre Ward yet. And all of a sudden they turn around and say, start talking shit. And then, they so against catch weights. We're not coming down to 156, nothing below 160 pounds to fight Canelo Alvarez, but they requested 164 pound catch weight to fight Andre Ward. But they was going to move up to 168 pounds to fight Chavez Jr. and Froch. And that's the type of shit that I don't like. This is not a Pacquiao situation where Pacquiao moved up, 6-7 weight divisions, and he's, requesting a catch weight. This is a full-fledged middleweight, a Triple G. And supposed to be physically one of the physically most strongest guys, at 160 around the weight. But he had no issues fighting former 154 pounder Willie Monroe. Him coming up to him, but he don't want to take a risk to come up. And Abel Sanchez is the same guy that makes all these motherfucking excuses for Gennady Golovkin. He got one horse in the race. John David Jackson made help Kovalev make the jump into the best light heavyweight of the world. Fuck what Abel Sanchez say, I laid the groundwork. No, you didn't take him there. John David Jackson did. So you got one current horse in the race. You know, you don't have no other boxer that's anywhere near. And at least Freddie Roach he acquired some talent and rebuilt some talent and made them into monsters. They're seen. But Abel Sanchez got one horse in the race, and he's talking about, you know, he's talking about them being the best. But this Canelo Alvarez fight is your only legitimate fight versus a legitimate foe, in my opinion. You know, every other foe had an asterisk by him. You know, Jacobs had been stopped before. Kell Brook was a welterweight. Stevenson had been beat before. All these other guys, this make him thorough, but he ain't the voice of